and gentlemen, boys and girls, ships at sea, it is time for another episode of Property of the Week with PropertyLens. For those of you who don't know, if it's your first time here, I'm Bob Frady, CEO and co-founder of PropertyLens, and with me, as always,
John Siegman, president and co-founder of PropertyLens.
So, John, I've picked a property for us, and it's interesting in a few different ways. And I picked it because I just wanted to pick a place from Wisconsin. Just drove through Wisconsin. It was lovely. And I thought, well, let's just look at Wisconsin. We never look at Wisconsin. You okay with that?
Why wouldn't I be okay with Wisconsin? Home of beer, brats, and cheese.
Absolutely no idea. Here's the property at 35500 Washington Avenue in Burlington, Wisconsin.
Do you think there are 35500 residences in there?
Maybe Washington Avenue just goes for hundreds of miles. And there is a one Washington Avenue somewhere at the very tippity top of Wisconsin. Maybe it's a latitude, longitude code in there. Who knows? So what's the first thing that sticks out about this property?
Well, it's a duplex.
That is interesting because when we look at the listing itself on Realtor in this case, it doesn't say anything about it being a duplex. Now, I will say something about this listing, and no disrespect to the real estate agent who put it on there, but there's nothing in this listing that gives you any idea what it's going to be like to manage this house, what it's going to cost you. All it is a sales gig with no indication as to what's been repaired, no indication as to anything other than you're going to love this place. This is where real estate agents do buyers wrong. This is why we exist, because this sort of stuff is what you're supposed to live with. And then it says at the bottom, photos virtually enhanced. I'm like, come on, what's hiding in this house? I want to know.
So are you saying to me and our audience, which we love all of you, by the way, this listing site is for sellers and not buyers?
That is exactly what I'm saying. Buyers pay all the freight, yet are classically ignored. It's like if you have a house for sale and nobody buys it, it's worth nothing. That means it's priced too high or it's not worth anything. Without a buyer, there's no transaction. You need a seller and a buyer. Yet every real estate site is so tilted towards the sellers that it ticks me off because the buyer is the one who has to live there after the fact. Real estate agents don't do anything to help that buyer understand what they're getting themselves into, which is why we exist. So I suppose we should be thankful.
If we're trying to fill a market need, there's certainly a market need.
There's the need. Every real estate transaction is buyer beware. Yet nobody wants to say that, but that's the truth. Because even in disclosures, there's the to the best of my knowledge. And here's why that's important. When you look at the summary, 4 owners in the last 15 years. Yeah, if something happened 10 years ago, the current owner might not know what happened to that house.
Well, that's also telling me that, hey, 4 owners in the last 15 years, you're not staying long here. Why not?
We'll get to that section and we'll take a look and see. Maybe it's just some deed changes, but maybe it's some sales. We'll see. What's the snapshot telling us, John?
It's not in a flood zone. Yay. It's also not a flip property. That's also pretty good. Not that all flips are bad. Just there's something you need to be careful with when you're dealing with a flip. Repair costs, I hope you set aside a little bit of cashish because it doesn't look like this is going to be a cheap house to move into. Insurance increase is actually below national average. Tax increase has been flat, minus 15. The roof in great shape, doesn't require major renovation, so it's not falling down. No public building permits have been recorded. And this is an old house. This is 125 years old. So you definitely want to make sure that lots of things are taken care of because you could have knob and tube for wiring, you could have asbestos, you could have lead paint. There's all sorts of stuff that's happened over the last 125 years that could kill you today.
So if I was walking into this place, I would automatically have a lot of questions. A, because I'm somewhat suspicious of a buyer. And B, this right here, the property lists for $429,000, yet we estimate the 2-year repair cost to be $38,000, almost 10% of the list price. What? Why? Why? And again, we're not telling you that you should or shouldn't buy something. What we're telling you is there's questions that you should have answered before you make the decision to buy. So what do we got here in the pros and cons?
Historic charm. I love that. That is a realtor's way of saying it's old.
If you're tall, you
Historic
might bang your head.
Historic charm. Low crime rates, that's always good. No flood risk, always good. The city itself, the area, very attuned to responding to natural disasters, and spacious lot. It is on an acre. That's a lot of dirt. And if it's a lot of grass, that's a lot of grass to mow. That could be a highlight, could be a low light. Depends upon whether or not you are one with your mower.
Yeah, if we look at some of the concerns, what's our number one concern? Size discrepancy.
It's so standard. Happens all the time.
It happens all the time, but it's also one of the major causes of post-settlement lawsuits is you say that this is this size, we think it's this size, and maybe there's some work that's been unpermitted that would cause us to have to remediate this before we sell a house or buy a house. High utility costs, some wind damage in the past, relatively poor fire protection. There's probably not a lot of fire stations around. You're not near public transit. It's nice, but I got a lot of questions primarily around this. Here's the key
Oh,
questions.
then let's get some answers.
What's the condition of the roof after the recent hail damage? Are there any unpermitted additions to the property? How about the age of the house? How's it affecting your maintenance needs? What's the condition of the heating and cooling systems? All sorts of questions to ask about this property. So here's where we look at the 2-year cost. We don't have any signals in here as to what it's going to cost you in repairs on this house. So we have to estimate it based upon the age of the underlying systems. So we don't know if HVAC's been updated. We don't know if electrical or water heater or pipes or plumbing fixtures or any of these things have been updated. So we put an estimate out there in terms of what you're probably going to spend in the next 2 years.
And there's a lot out there.
There's a lot. It's like, where's the real estate agent helping you out with this stuff?
And you know that if any of this stuff had been done, it had been mentioned in the write-up.
Yep. So we're going to assume that since it wasn't mentioned in the write-up, it hasn't been done. All of these things, you'll need to really be sure that your inspector checks them out and that you know that one of these systems probably going to have some issues in the next couple of years. Well, the roof looks good, which is nice. What do we got for risks there? Key findings.
Mold. It's the Midwest. It's humid. There's probably lakes nearby. That's the joy. Also, high exposure to polyfluoroalkylides. Stop that nonsense. If you're on a well and not on city sewer, you could be drinking that stuff.
Check that water because you're on a private well.
Let's see. We got lightning, wind, and tornado.
Stuff comes from the sky.
It's all sorts of just stuff that is inherent in the northern Midwest.
Here's one of my favorites right here. If you're in a high lightning area, then you should have a surge protector on your electrical panel because when lightning hits the ground, it can travel out. So it might not hit your house. It might hit your neighbor's house. Come shooting through the ground, conduit into your wire, blows up your electrical panel. And then you're without electricity and maybe fries your electronics in the house as well. Who knows what kind of wiring is this house because it's so old. You got to check this when you walk into this place. Is there something on that electrical panel? Has the electrical panel had any damage? And how can you talk to your utility and get something on this electrical panel to help guard against surge from lightning?
Yeah, but if it's got a charming view by a creek, you may buy it anyway.
Very funny. So it was built before 1978. We don't see any, there's no red flags on here. The roof seems in good condition. Insurance standpoint, relatively modest to insure.
Yeah.
It costs more to replace it than it does to buy it. Because of the age of the property, this is going to cost you $430,000 to replace, and you're only paying $429,000 for the house. So you just want to make sure that your Schedule A is up around that $430,000 range. You should be okay with the purchase price, but talk to your insurance agent about it. Okay, here's what we see. This is really amazing. The midpoint of the market value is exactly the list price for the house.
I wonder how they figured that out.
I wonder how they figured that out, but good for them. So it's not overpriced. It's not underpriced, but it's not overpriced. Differing markets differ, but it's, One structure on a 1-acre lot, 2 stories with a basement. It's got a garage. And then here's the listing. So it was last sold in 2020. So yeah, there were lots of deed changes here. 2007, then it went to a government deed, then it went to an
That was
individual
an
deed.
interesting one. The government deed,
Yeah,
that may have been a foreclosure.
might have been. Then a husband and wife went into a trust, listed in 2020 and sold, now listed again for 5 years later for $140 more thousand dollars.
Yep, 1/3 more.
Property taxes look like they went down on this location. That's
A little
interesting.
bit.
Yeah. Don't see that happen very often.
Well, maybe they paid off some municipal bond or something like that. We don't know.
There you go. Here's the property. It's got a detached garage in the back. Looks super cute. Super cute. If you like that kind of thing, then
This is your house.
you're going to like that kind of
You
thing.
love that kind of thing.
It's got a charming little view, little outbuilding in the back. Nice. Here we go. Hail. 2-inch hail in 2025. You want to ask how'd the roof go? Because there's sometimes a gap between when we get the picture of the roof and when we get the hail information. So you want to check and make sure that the roof is in good condition. We think it's in good condition, but just check. Looks like it's in pretty good condition
Yep.
from the eyes and the skies. Looks like the roof was replaced 3 years ago. 30-year roof. If you have to replace it, it's about 18 grand. Pretty good from risk exposure. What do we see in the potential threats and structural integrity, John?
Not a whole lot. Water hardness, you might want to consider getting a water softener, keep away those indoor water leaks. I've been told it gets cold in Wisconsin, but when you look at this, it's like, yeah, you got some frosty potential because it's going to get frosty. So, other than that, really, from a structural standpoint, the soil is fine. It's Wisconsin. You can grow pretty much, whatever type of thing you throw seeds at, you'll be fine. Um, it's decent soil. You're going to be good there. It's 2 stories with a basement. One of the things you'll definitely want to check for is because you have a basement is radon.
Mm-hmm.
Not screaming here in the report, but still
Nope.
something you want to check on. Um, Building permits are generally required for most construction projects, and yet we show no permits.
Correct.
So that would be a question that I would have.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if any professional has done any work, do you have the receipts? Do you have contacts? Because you may or may not want to use that same individual going forward.
Like it says here, owners often make unpermitted changes, which lead to unexpected repairs and costs. Be sure to confirm all modifications with the seller before the purchase. You have every right to ask this question, but the absence of information means most people won't ask the question, and that's a shame. If we look at flood, not much in the way of flood risk here, which is lovely. Don't recommend flood insurance. Climate risk.
Now, we've seen it all before. Lightning, tornado, wind. It gets cold in Wisconsin. It gets hot in Wisconsin. They have winter weather in Wisconsin. Did you know that?
They have winter weather. Not so bad on
Um,
the hail, though.
Not so bad on the hail. That's not too bad. I mean, you get storms every now and then. It's just life. Not gonna have a wildfire. It's flat, so you're not gonna have an avalanche. You're not gonna have an earthquake. If you have a volcano or a tsunami, lots of really, really, really bad things have happened.
Yeah, if there's a volcano in Wisconsin, we're all in for a bad day. So from a crime standpoint, pretty low crime area, which is nice. A little bit of average raw. I mean, the U.S. is a pretty safe place, but I still might get a camera because why not? They're cheap. No sex offenders nearby, which is lovely.
It is lovely.
How about the quality of life in the neighborhood?
It's probably wonderful for those people who like to be alone. Um, if you're not walking anywhere, you're not taking the bus, you're not hopping on the rail to go to the game type of thing. I don't want to say you're out in the middle of nowhere because you're not. You're only like 20 miles to Lake Michigan,
Yep.
but you're out there. And you better make
Yep.
friends with your neighbors because they're going to be the first ones that respond.
You are going to have a little bit of noise here, some road noise. It's low, but you'll notice it. And there's probably a train that swings past there because there's a little bit of elevated train noise as well. No airports nearby. See, you're right on the road. Now, what's interesting is the points of interest within 5 miles. None of them are near this location.
Well,
So
they're within 5 miles, but they're not on top of that location.
yes, yes, they're over here to the east. And so yeah,
Yes.
you're it's country living on Highway D.
Green Acres.
Okay, toxic exposure, John. Talk to me about this.
Well, as we already pointed out, mold and PFAs, but also ding, 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 radon. Nailed it.
Ding, ding,
Um,
ding.
it's a C, so it's average. It is a naturally occurring gas.
Mhm.
It happens to do with the fact that the Earth itself is just getting older and decomposing slightly. And, you can wait the 10 million years for the rest of the Earth to off gas, or you can make sure that it doesn't apply to you, or if it does, that there is a mitigation system in the basement.
Correct. It's a cheap test. You should always run it in an area with a C or a D for radon.
Yep.
Contaminated sites, while the town's over there, the nearest contaminated site,
Is not too far from you.
Arthur
So
Swanson has an underground storage tank. It's a third of a mile away, which is 1,500
more than
feet,
enough, because
more
if
than
it's more
enough.
than 1,000 feet, you're fine.
Yep. Health and safety, everything's poor.
You're on the edge.
Yeah, you have hydrants, which is nice.
It is
Um,
nice.
but you've got a volunteer fire station is the closest one, and then you're relying on the town after that. So that may impact your insurance rate slightly. Same with medical response because the two of those are generally intertwined, and here's where the fire stations are. Volunteer is 4 miles away, and insurability outlook looks pretty good. So if you want to get a quote, lots of people want to quote you, and then there's the timeline for the property. So John, let's say that you were going to buy 35500 Washington Avenue in Burlington, Wisconsin. What would be the top 3 things you would look for at this property?
The top 3 things that I would be looking for. You gotta look at the systems. I mean, it's what is its renovation history? It's 125 years old. So, there aren't gonna be photos going back that far, but what's the story? How much of the story can you get? And how much of it is gonna be true? So, the first thing I'm doing is I'm getting the most particular inspector I know or can find. I want to see somebody who this guy was so picky, that's or girl, in their write-ups, in their reviews. I'm going to have somebody who is going to go through there, understands Wisconsin building, has seen these things before, because I'm coming from out of town, way out of town. And while I do know Wisconsin a little bit, I don't know if that's right or that's wrong or if that's good or that's bad. I don't have a basement. So what do I know about them? So that would be the first and absolute first thing that I would be looking for is an inspector who could definitely get the money's worth. That inspector would not be recommended by either of the realtors involved in the transaction. I want somebody way outside is only going to get paid for doing this gig. So that's number one. Number two on my list is got to go look at the roof. Yeah, it's 3 years old, but 2-inch hail, that's pretty significant. Now, maybe they put on fortified roof shingles the last time they did it, and you've got some additional protection, and it's like, 2-inch hail, give me 20 feet of snow. I don't care. I'm good. Or not. Third, it's an old house. I'm sure it's been updated. I'm sure it's been redone. I'm sure. But, and this is a split because I'm going to want to go up in the attic and see that there's insulation because a lot of times these older homes, and I know this is going to sound weird, have no insulation in the attic. And then I'm going to go down to the basement and look for the mitigation system because radon is a silent killer. So those would be my three and a half things that I would be looking for if I were going to buy this house, and when I would be looking to put a profile up on one of the dating sites because I will be there alone.
Okay, if I were buying 35500 Washington Avenue in Burlington, Wisconsin, here are the top 3 things I would look for. And let me tell you something, I'm not gonna be able to hold myself to 3 because the listing agent did no favors to anyone with this house, neither the seller nor the buyer, because all it does is raise more questions than it asks. So number 1, what is the repair history? Just because we don't have permits doesn't mean they don't exist. Sometimes, especially with smaller towns, they don't publish their permit data easily, so you can't get it to ingest. And that might be the case here. So there may be permits, there may be work that's done, but as far as we can tell, nothing's been done recently to that house. So that's a huge wild card in the expenditure of that house. So number 1 is repair history. Number 2 is this is listed as a duplex, but shows as a single family house. Why that discrepancy? Did it used to be a duplex that's been recombined? How did those systems get integrated? So that's number 2. Number 3 is I would test my water because you've got some iffy groundwater and you're on a well. So I would get the water tested, which is not part of the standard inspection because I don't want to be drinking bad water. And then number 4 would be radon. I would want to get a radon test done if there is not a mitigation system there already. If there is a system, then great, we check that box off. The last thing I would check is the sewer line. The house is 120 years old. What's the condition of the sewer line? And what's the condition of the septic line? Because it's in the country, root intrusion is a real thing. When is the last time that it was inspected? So I think I'm up to 5 things now. So those are the
Yes.
5 things.
Let's do the Bob Frady count. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I think those are the 4 that I would do for this location. It looks super cute. It's priced reasonably. It's right on market value, so I'm not too worried about that stuff. But I am really concerned with how much more this is gonna cost me. Because here's what happens a lot of times in prices in this house range, is it's somebody who's stretching. Maybe it's their first house, maybe it's a small upgrade, but they're stretching to get to this house. And you don't necessarily want 8% of the listing price of the house into your costs. You don't want to be paying out that money. So like you said, if you make an offer on this house without asking these questions, A, get a PropertyLens report, and B, make sure you hire the inspector. Don't rely on your agent, especially don't rely on the selling agent to give you a listing. And when you talk to your buyer's agent, say, I want the picky inspector. I want the person who is the difficult inspector. And make sure that you find somebody who's going to go over this place with the fine-tooth comb because it looks super nice. But there are a ton of questions that you should have before making an offer on this house. Because listen, if you buy this place or make an offer on this place and then run into all these questions after you've fallen in love with it, A, you're going to make a decision that you come to regret potentially, or B, it's going to fall out. Like 1 in 6 real estate deals fell out last month. And this is one of the reasons why, because stuff's hiding and you're not aware of it. So I'm not saying that this is bad, but there's a ton of questions that I would ask about this property versus some other properties that we've seen in the past.
There are probably other houses, if you're going to be in that area, that you should also look at. That would be my parting thought.
All right, so for this week's episode of Property of the Week with PropertyLens, I'm Bob Frady.
I'm John Siegman.
Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It makes us feel better about ourselves. Until next time.